Trace Distillery is the oldest continuously operating distillery in the U.S. with a diverse portfolio of premium aged bourbons. Every autumn since 2000, they have released limited quantities of 5 premium bourbons. These small batch spirits, aged between 8 and 10 years in charred American oak casks, are one of Buffalo Trace's main claims to fame. Because of its constant experimentation and innovation and its praiseworthy goal of creating nothing less than the perfect whiskey, Wine Enthusiast is honored to make Buffalo Trace our Distiller of the Year.
Before it was a distillery, it was a settlement. And before it was a settlement, it was a frontier wilderness, a land lush with sprawling meadows, virgin forests of white oak, ash, and wild cherry trees, and formidable palisades carved by ancient rivers. Remote and untouched, it was a land whose stillness was a constant song of tranquility. It was the buffalo, however, that ultimately broke the silence of this wilderness, not only with the thunder of its massive herds, but with the thousands of miles of trails it trampled, trails that led pioneers and settlers alike westward. Today, Buffalo Trace quietly produces finely crafted bourbon. Yet more than 200 years ago on this very site, legends such as Daniel Boone and George Rogers Clark braved frontier dangers to find new lands and new adventures. By 1789, the ancient Buffalo Crossing was bustling with activity as Leestown became a key stop along the Buffalo Trace in the Kentucky River. A brisk traffic in distilled spirits had begun, and Leestown's warehouses stored many a barrel of Kentucky whiskey. Soon, a distillery was built on the site, thus marking the beginning of what would become Buffalo Trace's long history as a pioneering and innovative leader in the bourbon industry. Despite the setbacks of Prohibition and the Great Flood of 1937, the distillery rebounded and flourished under the guidance of Colonel Albert Blanton. Blanton was a bourbon aristocrat in the mold of E.H. Taylor and the great whiskey men of the 1800s. He took pride in the distillery as well as its products. In 1934, he designed and built the stately Stony Point Mansion, which overlooks the distillery grounds. And today, visitors and distillery employees alike enjoy the beauty of the distillery clubhouse, constructed with logs from century-old cabins, and an open courtyard, and gardens designed by Blanton. In 1984, in honor of the Colonel and his love for tradition, the distillery made history with the world's first single-barrel bourbon to be marketed commercially. It's been more than 2 centuries since those first heroic pioneers struggled to survive in the fledgling settlement of Leestown. At Buffalo Trace Distillery, we endeavor to honor the great sacrifices of the brave souls that sought to open new worlds. We seek to capture their drive, their spirit, and their determination in the authentic, high-quality whiskeys produced at Buffalo Trace. In the last 10 years alone, our bourbons have earned more than 40 top distinctions in national and international competitions, and our labels are called for in countries around the world. This legacy lives on in our namesake bourbon, Buffalo Trace Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Accepting Wine Enthusiast Distiller of the Year Award on behalf of Buffalo Trace is Mark Brown, CEO of the parent company Sazerac. Mark, warm congratulations.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. And thank you also to Paul Packolt and Gary Regan. Tonight is a wonderful opportunity to pay tribute to those that went before us at the distillery. Hancock and Willis Lee, who founded the distillery in 1775, to E.H. Taylor, whose buildings we still enjoy today from the 1870s, to Albert Blanton, whose family has contributed a lot over the 232 years of our distilling history, and also to our modern-day legend, Elmer T. Lee. But I also would like to thank and applaud the 250 men and women at the distillery today who make whiskey with so much passion, represented here tonight by Harlan Wheatley, our master distiller, and Drew Mayville, our master blender. Our passion and mission in life is very simple. We want to make the finest whiskey that's ever been made. We also want to make sure that bourbon and American whiskey takes its rightful place on the international stage as a high-quality whiskey product in the same spectacular fashion that American wines have done over the last 25 years. And finally, is to make sure that we hand the distillery over to the next generation so that the place may continue for another 232 successful years. Thank you very much indeed.